Hello, welcome back. It has been a long awaited return, but we are officially back, and this is definitely the time. We have our boy, the man, Megatron, Ethan Donnelly. Thank you for
Sure.
joining.
Thank you for having me live from the district.
Yes, this is true. To start, I'm buzzing. I know you're probably buzzing as well. The US men's national team are out of the group stage and on to the next round. Before we deep dive, what do you have to say? Um, Initial reactions after the win. What are you feeling right now?
The initial reaction is just pure elation and excitement for because US soccer's back and we can call it soccer now and not have to even discuss if it's called football because we own England. But to be honest, it's a little bit more of a sigh of relief just because we've had the expectation that we really should advance in the group that we're in, and it was deceptively difficult, and people kind of had more respect for Wales and Iran that they did months ago, as they should. So, it's an accomplishment ever for everyone to get out of the group stage because, of course, only one team goes on to win. But I mean, put your separate feelings of Greg Berhalter aside. You just have to respect that he got the squad ready, and in the end, he pulled through. And he's made questionable decisions. We can kind of go into that, but at least he has to have the respect that he's led this team from where they were to now advancing to the round of 16 for the World Cup.
Yeah, you really do. I, you know, have been seeing a lot on Twitter about very mixed back and forth of is Berhalter actually good or not? And I'm on the side of mostly yes, he's been very good in this World Cup, but my issue is his lack of substitutes. And what I have to say is I don't think that it should be 0 or 100. I think it's okay to praise him where he should be praised and critique him where he should be critiqued. He has gotten every single starting lineup, I think, pretty like perfect. Um, you
Definitely agree.
saw, yeah, go ahead.
Definitely agree. I was kind of iffy on going into the third game versus Iran. I was like, I think a change needs to be made. I personally didn't know where it should come from, but I definitely thought that it was a little shaky, at least on the defensive end. And the Cameron Carter Vickers sub for Zimmerman, going forward, I think I could be the go-to where you see Carter Vickers play 60-ish, 70-ish minutes, and then you have Zimmerman come in the back last third of the game because with his height and his freshness, he'll be really good, especially on set pieces where if we're playing more defensive, like it seems we kind of have that strategy going forward if we have leads. So I really like the Carter Vickers change to the starting lineup.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Um, I mean, this is really my question is did Cameron Carter Vickers or CCV or whatever you want to call him, did he officially take Zimmerman's job or is it still up for grabs? And who do you give the start to? Because obviously Tim Ream is the GOAT. He is far and above the best center back. I don't know what happened to him in 2020. I guess that would have been 2021, where he just forgot to play soccer for a year. And everyone was like, what is he doing? Get him out, get him out. I was one of them. I did not think he deserved to be in the national team. He then comes in 2022 and plays really well for Fulham and earns his spot. And now he's like the greatest center back to ever touch the field. Like he doesn't make mistakes almost ever. And yeah, so he's untouchable, obviously, but did CCV earn his spot as the starting center back? What are you thinking?
I think going forward, I would personally kind of go with the Cameron Carter Vickers in the starting 11 lineup. And depending on how the game's going, if we fall behind, maybe you put in Walker Zimmerman but I think that the main strategy, if you start Carter Vickers, is that you have the uber aggressive first half like we've seen recently to get that first goal or at least hopefully get multiple. But once you have that lead, you can bring in Zimmerman, who's a little bit more dynamic defensively, um, to kind of shore up on those set pieces. And of course, he's had a majority of the playing time, so he's a little bit more comfortable back there because we saw Carter Vickers have a couple close no calls, close over aggressiveness, but I think that really works early in the game. So I definitely would roll with Carter Vickers starting in the future.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So here's what I have to say about his little close no calls. I think Iran, sorry. I hope the media doesn't come after me like they did Tyler Adams. Iran, I'll say it. Um, they that penalty shout they were trying to get at the end of that game. I mean, he basically he went like this and just touched it. It's not like he pushed down, not like he did anything like that. He just touched his shoulder and he flops. And now I will say I understand why he did it because stuff like that, I think with VAR happens less, but stuff like that until it is completely taken out of the game, it's still going to happen. And I
Mhm.
understand that you're trying to get that penalty call at the end because of the fact that if you get that penalty call, then you get a pen and you have a minute and 30 seconds left in the game. The likelihood that the US will then come back and score a second goal in a minute and a half is very low. And obviously, you're trying to win at all costs. So I understand why he did it. But at the same time, it's like, I hated it in the moment because I'm like, you're just trying to sabotage. But then again, if the US had a similar situation, I probably would be screaming, "Oh my gosh, it's a pen!" All this.
Yeah.
To back up on your one point about Zimmerman, now I agree CCV should start. Now, this isn't a point where I'm going to critique Greg Berhalter in the fact that he brought in Zimmerman. Now, I understand the whole park the bus, it's 1-0, you don't want to concede. But when you bring him in or in that like early enough, now don't get me wrong, he played very, very well. It has nothing to do with the fact that Zimmerman didn't play well because he played very well. He was literally throwing his body at any ball in his general direction, which is awesome. But my issue is that when you become so defensive like that, then you have no offense. You're basically like saying, we're not going to score. So what
Mhm.
happens when someone makes a mistake in the back? Obviously, they didn't. But if someone makes a mistake in the back and then they score late in the game, well, you've had no offense for the last 10, 15 minutes. So you pretty much shut yourself off from scoring. Now, if it's 5 minutes left, then sure. But I think I let me pull this up on see when he got subbed on because I just thought it was a little too soon. That's all.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's my one biggest critique of Berhalter is, I mean, of course, kind of the personnel in terms of subs specifically is a critique, but more macro is how it's almost like he's just looking at the halves as either the strategy is going to be aggressive or totally on the back end defending. There's no middle ground. And I
Yeah.
don't really get that, especially when you're going to need to score more than one goal in these games going forward to be able to make a run. So I definitely hope he kind of changes from that strategy.
Yeah. And the thing is that it's not like the USA weren't creating chances. Let's say they the Pulisic goal was a fluke, and that was their one shot all game. And you're like,
Hmm.
all right, we just don't have it. We're gonna park the bus. Then, I mean, I'm not gonna be happy, but at least I like understand his
Understand.
decision
Yeah.
making. I mean, I still understand conceptually what he was trying to do. He was trying to not concede, which obviously they needed to not concede. But I think they needed to not concede and also still play offense. Have if you're gonna do that, basically say, hey Dest, hey Anthony, don't get caught up in the attack nearly as
Mhm.
much. Rather than let's throw on a third center back and basically just park the bus and be uber aggressive to get the ball out at every single chance. And then you saw the Cameron Carter Vickers. Obviously, it wasn't a pen, but who knows? It's the ref's decision. So he could have seen that contact and be like, "Oh, that's a pen." So
Mhm.
I just think he needs to be a little bit smarter with when that happens.
Yeah.
Um, so Walker Zimmerman came in the 82nd minute. So that's actually not as early as I thought.
Yeah, same.
Um, I
With
mean,
the
still
stoppage time, it seemed
with this,
earlier.
yeah, it's with the stoppage seemed really long because it was 9 minutes of stoppage, and
Mhm.
then with the penalty check, it ended up being like 10 minutes of stoppage. So that means he was on for 18 minutes. Um, and I don't know. I think when you, it's hard. It's hard to say because you can see the fact that you don't want to concede, but I think when you have the situation of we need to also like create chances. Walker Zimmerman is not brought on to create chances.
Especially
That's
when you're playing a team like Iran, like you're not playing a top one of these top 10 crazy, they have an amazing offense. You're playing Iran, so you should still be able to put one in the back of the net the entire game. You shouldn't totally have to close off the entire facet of offense to be able to survive and win, you know?
yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think his substitutions were lacking in terms of who the personnel he brought in. And also, if I'm gonna make the argument about he was playing too defensive by making that Zimmerman sub at the time, you could say the same thing about the Kellen Acosta sub for McKinney. Now,
Mhm.
I'm fine with McKinney getting off because I know he's still not 100% fit. But why bring in Kellen Acosta there? It's like I think it was like the 60th minute. And this is just a little side note. So
Mhm.
yesterday, actually, well, let's bring it back. On Thanksgiving, they always have the good promotions on DraftKings. So I did a little for fun $5 parlay because I had $5 in my account. And if you placed a $5 parlay bet, you got $10 in free bet. So I didn't hit the parlay, obviously, because I just like it's $5. I'm just gonna go crazy because I'm getting it back no matter what. So yesterday, I did a parlay, 5 legs. So it was Pulisic to score, Tyler Adams to get a card, USA to win, and Christian Pulisic 2 shots on goal, and then finally Weston McKennie goal. So I hit 4 out of 5. It was 5 to win $500. So if Weston had scored a goal, then I would have won $500. Obviously he didn't, and they
Damn.
still won. So that's ultimately all that matters. So the whole point that I brought that up was that when Weston got subbed out at the where was it 65th minute, I was like dying because they were still like playing offensively at that point, and
Mhm.
I was like, okay, he might actually score a goal and I can win $500 and the USA advance. But yeah, so that's total tangent, but Alan Acosta on for Weston in the 65th minute. So we talked about this over text. I think Kellen Acosta is a good player. I've criticized him in the past, just because he has games where he's just not on, and even in 2021, Berhalter trusted him a little more, and he was giving him starts in some of these games where, I think his deficiencies were kind of exposed in some of those games. But when he comes on as a sub, he's really effective. Doesn't really give up the ball. Um, so I don't necessarily care that he's on the field, but I think in terms of the other options, you have Gio Reyna. I don't know if you want to comment on him, but
I mean, I just don't know what situation is gonna like garner him being on the field. It doesn't seem like it's just not gonna happen. I mean, it makes no sense in some of these games where, especially the first and second game against Wales and England respectively, where you're struggling in the final third. Put the kid in who has the most like creative shot making ability, most technically proficient in the final third. Like, why are we leaving him off the field? It
it
makes no sense.
makes no sense. And so Pulisic is far and above the most clutch player that we have. If you think about it, he scores in the Nations League final, the winning goal, since the summer of 2021. Or yeah, wait, hold on. Or is that 20 was Nations League final 2020 or 2021? I can't remember. So was that hold on. Now because let's see. CONCACAF Nations League final. Um I believe that was 2021. Yeah, okay, 2021. So scores the winning goal in the Nations League final in June. Okay. Then World Cup qualifying happens. He's hurt at the beginning of the qualifying. He got hurt for a game or I think the last game of the September window or something, or maybe he didn't play the first game. One of those
Something
games he
like
didn't
that.
play, whatever. So that was kind of like a wash of a camp. October, I don't think he. Oh yeah, I'm butchering this. I'm just gonna cut out. But my point is, then November comes. Mexico, USA in the United States scores the first goal to put them up 1-0 header, the iconic man in the mirror celebration there.
Mhm.
2 for 2, the two biggest games that he played in that span, scores in both, and is the goal that puts him ahead. Okay.
Yep.
Fast forward to the game in Minnesota that was in literally the negatives. It was the January window. It's the third game of the window. The first two, he is the worst that I've ever seen him play. Was trying to force everything. That Canada game, I don't know if you watched that, but that was brutal. He played awful, could not do anything. They lose the game, all this. Following game, Greg Berhalter's like, hey, you're not playing. And I don't blame him. I agreed with Berhalter in this situation. I know that's crazy. I 100% agreed with Berhalter. And what does Pulisic do when he gets subbed on? His second touch of the game, he scores. Like,
Crazy.
he's the man.
As soon as you doubt him, put
Exactly.
one in the net.
Iran comes in, scores a goal, sacrifices his nuts for the goal, and now he's not gonna be able to have kids. He doesn't need to be a father. He's a founding
No.
father. He's a founding
Yeah.
father for the United States. Um, so I just went on the tangent about how great Christian Pulisic is. I don't
It
even
needed to be
know.
said. It needed to be said.
I don't even know why I started talking about him. Do you remember what I like said?
We were going about Gio Reyna, so we were kind of talking about like he's the only
That's
other
what it
player
was.
that can really
Okay,
finish in the
well,
final third.
yes, so that's what it was. Before I go into that, do you have any um response and stuff about my just 5 minute tangent about how much of a god Christian Pulisic is?
I mean, it's really nice to finally see because I think the American fans and people who follow the USA team throughout qualifying, throughout CONCACAF, know how good he is. But then you have all these Premier League fans who kind of rip him and say, well, shouldn't see the field and the anti-American bias for American players in the Premier League, but that's besides the point. And so it's nice to see that now on the world stage where everyone's seeing him, the light is shining the brightest. He performs just as we all know he should and can and does. So
Yeah,
it's really good to see him finally getting the respect he deserves.
100%. Could not agree more. Um, and I have a thing where when I am a fan of players, I normally don't pick the guys. Like I don't normally like to be fair, Messi's my favorite player ever. That's besides the point. He's just the GOAT, the greatest to ever do it.
Generational.
Exactly. But when I like um my favorite player for the longest time was Marco Royce. He's like a random guy. Obviously he's very good, but he's not like Ronaldo or he's not,
Mhm.
whatever. He's not the guy that you always like he's the number one player forever.
Yeah. Mine was Vincent Company, kind of similar.
Exactly. We're similar. Okay. For the USA team, I love Christian Pulisic. He's the guy that like if you go out on the street and say go USA and ask them who they know, they say, "Oh, Christian Pulisic, he's good. He's this because he's been the face for 6 years now." But I love him. You can't not love him. He comes up big, and even in the first game, the Iran game, had the assist that eventually Tim Weah scored on.
Love it.
He does it. That's what he does.
Does
That's what he
everything.
does. That's what he does. So back to Gio Reyna. Gio Reyna um came up huge in the um Nations League final. He scored. And I'm not sure if he assisted. He definitely scored, which obviously if you score in a final, that's huge. And he was 18 at the time. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy. So um he's just a beast. Obviously he had that crazy run in the um the World Cup qualifier in Mexico. I'm sure you've all seen it where he dribbles past like 150 guys.
Yeah.
Obviously he ends up losing the ball, which is beside the point, but he comes up big too. He wants those big moments. In his second ever appearance, his first start, he scored a free kick goal. Um, and in his first one of his first games, they played a friendly in like June of 20. It was before the Nations League. They played in a friendly. I can't remember who it was against, but it was at the end of the game. He wins a penalty. He steps up. He's 18 years old, steps up and just literally is just a baller. He's a beast. I don't like I'm at a loss for words. He's the man. Him and Pulisic are awesome. And obviously Pulisic is getting time and he's getting the
Mhm.
respect he deserves. But Gio needs time. I don't know what it is. I don't know what your take is, but
It's just I- like you would think if your main issue is finishing in the final third, you go to your best finisher or arguably co-best finisher on the team, which is at this point Gio Reyna, and he just can't even sniff the field. And my biggest issue with Berhalter sub-wise, and this is like I don't know how this guy is getting to see the field when Gio Reyna isn't, is can we stop bringing Shaq Moore on? Can
I
we
I
stop?
I don't understand. Because
Like in that Iran game, he made like 5 or 6 just bad mistakes. And like it was every other the camera angle was panning him like doing the my
yeah,
bad thing. And it's like, oh my God.
well, I don't know if you saw last night after Clint Dempsey. Did you see what he said after the game about Shaq?
Yeah, I did.
He said he had more my bads than completed passes. And I'm like, yeah, that's accurate because here's the thing. I could have you could have told me that Shaq Moore would not get 0 minutes on the field if it was a week ago, and I would have been like, yeah, of course. Like he he I everyone was shocked when he even made the roster because before it's like, don't get me wrong, Shaq Moore's had a a brutal couple games. But to be honest, before that, he hadn't been like poor for the US. He scored the that goal in the Nations League. I mean, not the Nations League,
Mhm.
the Gold Cup. Like that quickest goal I think in US soccer history or whatever. And
Yeah.
he was fine in the Gold Cup. He wasn't exceptional, but he was good at getting forward. And then but like he really didn't feature much at all. And then he made the roster out of kind of nowhere. Um, maybe because Sam Vines got hurt. Like that's the only thing, but he's not even true left back. So I don't really understand that. But if they needed another fullback, maybe Greg thought, okay, he's the next guy. Um, but they have 4 right backs, so you're like, okay, it's definitely Dest first. Then it's probably a coin flip between Scally and Yedlin at that second spot. But Shaq Moore, like, it doesn't make any sense.
It's, and especially like I know he played poor in the first game he came into, but like in the winner go home game against Iran, I can at least my two kind of recollections was the ball that was going out that would have been a goal kick and we could have milked time off that he headed out of bounds. That Turner was screaming at him to let go and he didn't. That one, which could have costed a chance on the offensive end. And then he just consistently kept getting trapped up in the final third in the midfield where he needed to be back to defend, which is the reason he came in. So it
Yeah.
was just like, oh,
I yeah, you saw this. I think this was the England game when he got when Dest got subbed off for Shaq Moore.
mhm.
And Dest is literally screaming at Berhalter. He's like, "What is he doing?" Like, or I guess he was like half screaming at Berhalter, half screaming at the assistant, like asking
Mhm.
him what is going on. But obviously, he's yelling it loud enough so he knows Berhalter is going to hear him.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm just at a loss for words. I think that here's my issue with that also is that I think he's the clear fourth guy at right back because here's the thing. Dest is the clear one. I don't really think where was I? Oh yeah, Dest is the easy number one. And then here's the 2 and 3. You can it can switch. DeAndre Yedlin, I don't think it's great, but at least he has the experience of playing in a World Cup and he is like gritty, like he'll literally throw himself into a tackle and he's gonna play his heart out. It's like Shaq Moore, I don't think he's playing his heart out. Like he's not the type of guy. And then you have Joe Scally, who was in that Japan game, was probably the best player on the field. They got dominated, and yet he was running up and down that right side like he was a beast. So I don't know. That's just me. If I'm Greg, Jack Moore is definitely not the first sub coming off the bench at right back. Also, when did we start subbing out defenders? Like that's not even a thing. You sub out wingers first, and
Yeah.
like maybe like and like a midfielder and maybe a striker. You don't sub out the back line unless someone's hurt or they're absolutely gassed. Like, yeah, left backs and right backs, sure. Okay, it happens. But the first sub off the bench before a winger, like I don't know if that makes sense at all.
Also, a question for Berhalter subs. Do you have a problem with him? And that looks like he's kind of continuing to be the go-to guy off the bench in Haji Wright being one of the attackings.
So here's my thing. Haji Wright got absolutely lit up last night after his performance. Now, was he good? No, he was not good. But I think people were a little bit harsh on him. I think although he had that stupid shot at the end and he
Brutal.
wasn't great, I think he did get into some okay spots. Like it's not like he was a liability necessarily. Um, and he did play like pretty well in the England game. Like, I mean, I don't think Sargent had a like crazy good game in game one. I don't think Haji had a crazy good game in game two. I think Sargent had a very good game, like a quiet but good game. Yes,
Hmm.
yesterday. I think
Very
that
good.
was easily the best performance from our striker. It was yesterday. Um, I just hope he's okay. I haven't really seen anything about his injury. Um, so hopefully he's fine. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I mean, I was definitely kind of optimistic because after the game, he like was walking off the field with the group, so it wasn't like he was seeking medical attention during the
Yeah.
rest of the game. So I mean, hopefully, because he's like our best pure striker that we have. Um, but I mean, do you think if Sargent can't go and they shift things around, could that open up a spot to where Reyna sees the field?
Yeah, it could. Um, my thinking is that he won't. He won't start kind of no matter what. If he hasn't started yet, he's not going to start because we have Aronson that can play in a similar role as Reyna. If we didn't have Aronson, then it's like, yeah, there's a good chance. But since we have a player that is a similar skill set, to Reyna, I don't think he starts. So let's just say Sargent can't go. And Greg's like, I don't want Haji, and also not Ferreira, which that's a whole different conversation on
Yeah.
how he basically was a lock starter for like months, and now he's not gotten a minute in 3 games, which is crazy. But I'm not necessarily complaining. I think Ferreira was never really a starter. I think he's more of a like a super sub type of a guy that comes in. That's his role. I think he's a not a super sub is the wrong word. I don't really know what I'm looking for, but because he's not like an Aronson, he's not like a 60th minute like run around like crazy. He's more of a 75th, like we need a goal, let's throw another striker
Mhm.
on, and he's like gonna at least be competent, get in good spots, get in good areas. Will he finish? That's a whole different story, but
Yeah.
um yeah, what I will say is one last point before we end, and you can go as well. But I will say that um, I think that Greg needs to utilize his subs as a whole. We've touched on it a little bit, but using his subs is the most important part because he needs to utilize Reyna more. That is number one. He also needs to bring Scally in or Yedlin in if he's going to sub out Des, because obviously Des is maybe, I shouldn't say obviously, maybe Des is not healthy yet. But if you're going to bring on a right back, then Scally I think is first, Yedlin is second. And with that being said, Aronson and Reyna / anyone who comes on, if you're trying to make an impact sub, bring them on in the 65th minute. Don't bring them on in the 80th minute and try to force them to get in the flow of the game in 10 minutes. That's my thing, because you can't make an impact in 10 minutes. Doesn't matter if you're Messi. Well, maybe he can. 99% of anyone that comes on in the 80th minute is not going to make an impact in 10. You have to get in the flow of the game. Might take 5. And then once you get in the flow, then you start to find the ball and make that next move. Make an impact sub earlier. If it's a fresh leg sub, whatever. But if you're making an impact sub, bring them on in the 65th, bring them on in even the 60th. Let's just say your guy is not giving you what you need and you need an impact sub, bring him on in the 60th. I don't care. Give him 30 minutes to really come in and make an impact. Gio could be that guy. Aronson could be that guy. Luca De La Torre could be that guy. The fact that he's not had a minute in this World Cup is criminal. That is a whole different thing. He could have been a great piece against Iran, against England, against anyone. So that's what I have to say. That's my final thing. Utilize your subs in a better way and utilize Reyna more and Scally more and De La Torre more.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, if I had one final thing to say, it goes hand in hand with your point, is that in choosing which subs to go to, I just want Berhalter to steer away from, I'm going to manage the first half this way and I'm going to manage the second half this way, and nothing's going to change my mind about how I do it, and I'm not going to change that strategy during the game. Like, he just needs to trust that we can finish in the final third and give us a chance to kind of make those offensive rushes and chances beyond just the 45th minute, which it doesn't seem to really happen, or at least early in the second half. So I think he needs to just be a little bit more kind of feel the game out, rather than on paper, I'm going into this game with this specific strategy for each half and with these specific players going in to execute that strategy. That'd be my one thing.
100%. Could not have said it better. He needs to, if he has a game plan and it's working, aka Iran yesterday in the first half, they were like playing very well. And then I don't know what he said to them in the second half, but their level of play not plummeted. Obviously, they still won. It's not like they conceded 3 goals, but it went down significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that is, but I'm hoping they have a couple days off. Don't play again till Saturday. I hope he can kind of talk with the assistants and figure out what the game plan is for Saturday. The Netherlands, I think they're very beatable. I think that if you contain
Cody
Yakpo,
Gakpo.
yeah, it'll be fine.
I agree. Let's go win this thing.
Let's go do it. All we got to do is beat the Netherlands, Argentina, France, and Brazil, and we win the World Cup. It's not even a thing. It's slight work. Slight work. Yeah. Well, Don, appreciate you coming on. Thank you to anyone and everyone that is listening. Stay tuned for more content. That's all I gotta say.
Bye.